Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Frank Pereira. On December 6, 1992, a large crowd numbering in thousands thronged around the Babri Masjid in Ayodhya. As a police force of around 20,000 looked on, the crowd fell upon the mosque with sickles, axes, shovels and bare hands in the midst of militant slogans. The demolition of the Babri Masjid that immediately led to communal riots breaking out all across India would soon go on to determine the course of Indian politics for the next 25 years. On this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyze the politics of Ayodhya. Joining me on the program today are Lalita Kumaramangalam of the BJP, Tom Vadakan of the Congress, Nilotpal Basu of the CPIM and Professor Rajveer Sharma, RSS thinker. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. Professor Sharma, I'd like to begin with you, of course. Does religion really fetch you votes in this country?
Well, I would say that this is a question whose answer is both. It's no and also yes. It's no because generally it is said that religion is mainly a kind of a personal affair and therefore it should be taken as it is. But it is yes. It is yes because when we go deeper into the question of religions, I think we all will agree that many of our social and political values are sourced from religion. And it is not merely India. Almost everywhere, even in America, if you go to America and you get some kind of surveys conducted in 2010, 2014, 2016 by Pew, they have brought it very clearly that religious influence is there on the electoral behavior of the people there. And therefore, when we talk of the religion as a source of voting, I think many, for example, there are people who don't like some kind of a support, or they may not vote for a party which propagates, say, gay marriage or, say, abortions in America. And even in India, I think you know that there are people who are not supporting these kind of any initiatives on that issue. It's a social issue, but it has its roots in religion.
Okay.
So I'm saying that this is a question which can be answered both ways, yes as well as no, but largely it is yes.
Okay, fair enough. Mr. Vadakan, has the Ram Janmabhoomi movement and the Ayodhya issue benefited one particular party?
Well, at the ground zero, yes. It has, because they have used it without denial. Even today, 4 or 5 speeches were made by the Prime Minister of this country, and he's questioned our position on Ayodhya, and we've always said our position remains the same. Every speech you make, we don't change our position. Our position remains constant. The Supreme Court will decide on the issue, and we will abide by it. And your different channels across the country call us every half an hour, 45 minutes asking us what is our position because the Prime Minister said this or said that. But the reality is, yes, it has to be decided by the Supreme Court. We do not change our position. Somebody may have gained or somebody may have lost. The point is, we believe in secularism, and secularism is about equality of religion. Religion is there to strengthen moral values. And if that is misused, whether it's be Christianity, Hinduism, Islam, or whatever, the point is there are certain moral values. Now the trouble starts when you start believing that your religion is better than mine. That's where the contradiction comes. But if politicians step into it and try and provoke a polarization process, that's where the trouble starts.
Okay. Ms. Kumaramangalam, as far as religion is concerned, as far as, the BJP is concerned, you've heard when it comes to the UP elections, Ram Mandir becomes an issue. When it comes to Gujarat, suddenly Ram Mandir is not an issue. The BJP says the Congress has to come clean on what the Ayodhya issue means for the Congress. So where does the BJP stand here?
First, I think you're misstating, Frank. I think this time in the UP elections, Ram Mandir was not such a big issue at all. It was more a question of what was offered to the
It was part of the document that was proposed by Amit Shah on the 28th of January 2017.
That is because the Ram Mandir has always been an important issue for the BJP. So it is a part of our document. But if you see the campaign that went on in UP, if you remember it, and of course now what is going on in Gujarat, you will see that much more attention is paid to Roti Kapda Makan, as was, that was the old thing that was used. And people seem to be, especially the younger generation that's today voting, seems to be much more interested in that. But I do agree with the professor that you can't, discount religion as actually influencing people's votes, especially if you look at it from the purview of caste. Don't forget, caste is a part of religion. And in large parts of our country, people vote according to their caste, whether it's Tamil Nadu, whether it's Bihar, whether it's other places in the country. So I don't think it's a question of just merely religion per se. It's also a part of the caste equations in this country. Today, we actually have a demand from many Christians who say that even though we have converted, we want to be given the benefit of reservation because it's caste-based reservation. It's not religion-based, right? So I would say that this is it's not a gray or, white or black answer. There are many shades of gray in this. And I think religion has, from that point of view, benefited almost all parties across the country. It's not just the BJP as is being pointed out. I must, say that it has benefited, for example, Lalu Prasad Yadav and many others. I'm just quoting one example throughout the country. It's not, as I said, it's not restricted to one state or one religion merely. And people do vote also according to religion, I agree. But they also vote according to caste, which is very important to take into account for any politician standing for elections across the country.
Sure. Mr. Basu, as far as all parties are concerned, the left has always traditionally said that it will stay away from religion. But in the recently held Kerala elections, we saw even the left indulging in some kind of religious activities. We saw campaigning with photographs of Hindu deities. We saw posters being put up outside churches in Kerala. So is the left feeling left out and feels that it should be a part of the race?
I think it is absolutely baseless. And our position is very clear that we are not opposed to any religion. But we think that in a country like India, which is so diverse, and as Ms. Kumar Mangalam was also saying, you see, we have multiple identities. I mean, we do not have a single identity. Therefore, to appeal in politics on the basis of religious denomination and religious identity is, the starting point for divisiveness. Therefore, we think that in a country like India, where we have a constitution where we have recognized all these identities and their specific locations vis-a-vis the overall societal hierarchy, that the common citizenship is the binding glue of our constitutional order. And there I think politics essentially and parties essentially have to do with programs and policies which can change the material conditions of the life of the citizen, rather than appealing to certain religious sentiments and so on and so forth. But it is a fact that this has been not adhered to. And in a very big way, you see, Ayodhya was a sort of milestone in the sense that when a religious cause is propagated by a political party with the electoral symbol of that party, and not just after, but even in the run-up to the destruction of the mosque, there were so many riots, more than 1,000 people died.
So are you suggesting that the BJP benefited?
That was a big time initiation in the process of trying to polarize the society.
Mr. Basu, are you then suggesting that the BJP benefited as a result of the demolition of the Babri Masjid?
You see,
but if you look at the statistics, the BJP won in 1989 in Uttar Pradesh handsomely. See, 1993 it lost as a result of the Babri Masjid demolition.
There has been a very detailed study made by 2 American university professors who have shown that wherever there have been communal riots, I mean, the BJP has gained. And you see, sometimes you cannot see in naked eyes the immediate aftermath, the results.
The BJP should have won in 1996 then.
The polarization starts, no? The polarization, where was BJP before 1991? You are forgetting that BJP had just 2 seats in 84 elections, and then 89 it contested in conjunction with Janata Dal and other non-left parties, and then they gained legitimacy. Then 91, this call for Ram Janmabhoomi, where they shot up, and 1996 even they could not win. They could become the single largest party. Therefore, the process of polarization, big-time polarization, was definitely started with Ayodhya. And for us, what is important is, you see, it is not merely a religious question. Some of the basic tenets of the Republican Constitution, I mean, but for which India cannot survive as diverse and as huge it is, that really received a body blow.
Ms. Kumaramangalam, do you want to respond to that? And I'll quickly go to the professor after that.
It's a question of how we look at the issue. With all due respect to my friends in the left, and I'm considered, very often I'm told I'm more leftist than rightist. These are just terms according to me. But the fact is that I think polarization started a long time before the Babri Masjid was demolished. It depends on what polarization you're talking about. That's all. Yes, there was a disenchantment amongst a particular community in this country, because very often they felt that they were being sidelined, or they were always being told that being the majority community, you are the one who has to bend over backwards. Now, I think people got fed up of bending over backwards and said that, look, we also would like to be much more aggressive than we have been all these years. And I quite frankly don't think you can blame them. I come from a family which doesn't even bother about caste or religion. But I still would not find it easy to point fingers at those who say that we do care about it. Because there's another thing that must be understood, that religion is not merely political, it's also very personal, as the professor said when he spoke, that every religion is personal, regardless. Every religion is supposed to be here to give us a set of values that will make our lives better. But when politics is played with any one religion, regardless of which one it may be, you can't blame somebody else for saying that, look, I do not believe that it should be in favor of one and not the other.
Sure.
Now, this argument can be used by across the political spectrum.
Professor, I know you've been waiting patiently to come in on the debate. I'm going to take your view, but before that, a quick counter from Mr. Basu, and then I'm coming to you.
My simple question is that Hinduism, unlike other Semitic or Abrahamic religions, it is also diverse. I mean, when Supreme Court was asked that how do you define Hinduism, they raised their hands and they said that we cannot define Hinduism. The 6 major philosophical tendencies within the larger Hindu pantheon, I mean, they are as different as from others. And therefore, what we are seeing as Hinduism is essentially a Brahminical doctrine which has been pushed in the name of the religion. And therefore, I think this religion and social attitudes and cultural attitudes, all these linkages that are being made, I mean, must be qualified that which particular version of Hinduism one is talking about.
Sure. I think Professor Sharma is the ideal person to respond to that. Yeah, go ahead, Professor.
When you say that there should be some kind of, he was saying that we stand for secularism, and religion, of course, doesn't play. I think that is what he is trying to say, that religion is not playing any kind of an influencing role. That is what Mr. Basu implies by saying. But at the same time, let me make 2 very quick submissions on this issue. One, that secularism cannot be selective, and secularism cannot be pseudo. What we preach, we must practice. Unfortunately, various political parties have been preaching something and practicing totally opposite to it. When it comes to a question of creating a clash, they have been responsible for creating conflicts in the society, and religious conflicts especially. Now let me give you some, even playing the minority card, playing a Muslim card is also a kind of a religious politics. And therefore, it is not merely the Hindus that they say that they play politics. In fact, the political parties who are anti-Hindu, they are also playing the religious card by playing the Muslim card against the others. So therefore, let us be very clear about it. When we sit and we discuss things, let's really be honest. Are we really saying that we are practicing secularism in the right spirit? I'm sure they are not. So this is one aspect which I wanted to. The second aspect is that so far as the politics in the post 85 or post 86 is concerned, I think we shall have to go back to even 1984 when BJP got only 2 seats. And that was also the reason for the principles for which BJP stood at that time. And they said that the massacre of 6 is really against the constitutional tenets of the country. And nobody else spoke that, yes, this is what is wrong. So therefore, the whole nation should have stood up at that time that whatever was done by the Congress was wrong. Fine enough. I think that was the beginning where some kind of a class politics started and some kind of communalization of politics, in fact, started.
Okay. Over the years, Mr. Vadakan, has the society as a whole moved towards a majoritarianism kind of a view as a result of the Babri Masjid demolition?
Well, I think what we are seeing in the ground level in Gujarat is a clear indication that issues have moved beyond religion. The issue of economic issues have come forth, especially demonetization, GST, and the current economic situation has now come. The new generation is asking questions. Where are the jobs? Where are we going to get our next meal? I mean, these are questions. And security. And the government of India has no answers. And especially in Gujarat, the Gujarat model that they call, or Gujarat muddle that some economists are calling it, the point remains that there is hardship. When your pockets are empty, your the belly is empty, questions are asked. Now we are moved, I think, away from religion. Despite attempts to bring religion into the narrative, I think people are not buying it anymore. Now the mention here was done about 1984. I was witness to some of the riots, and let me inform you that I saw a lot of people from the RSS involved. Today there's a perception that it was that Congress was involved, but I would believe it had nothing to do with communal instincts, because at that time, if you go to the real issue, people who were killed were Hindus, not Muslims. And we found them being shot in buses, pulled out. And so that was not a reaction to a particular religion or the point was there was an issue at that time, and the reaction was to that. To say the seeds of communal indicator or anything happened during 1984 is absolutely incorrect, because 1984, I think, was the worst accident, and it had no communal trend indicator, because it happened because
I don't think you can dismiss it as an accident.
Let me complete.
I don't think you can dismiss it as an accident.
No, let me complete.
Okay, one at a time.
Let me complete.
This is the big picture on Rajya Sabha TV. Please, let's be civil and let's discuss it civilly. You can't dismiss it as an accident.
No, I'm not dismissing. It was an issue that rose after the assassination of the Prime Minister of India. Now, that certainly was not communal. There was a history to it. The Operation Blue Star, the follow-up, 2 bodyguards who happened to be Sikhs. We do not know the entire plot, what happened, or the real story. But yes, there was blood in the streets, and we regretted it. The government of India regretted it. Prime Minister Manmohan Singh ji regretted it. And so did Sonia ji.
Let me bring in the others as well.
Let me wind it up.
Okay, very quickly, yeah.
Point is, I'm only saying that was not communal as per se. It was an event that happened, and that's a bad chapter in our history. And it has nothing to do with communal thing. Communal issues started with Ayodhya.
Okay. Yes, Ms. Kumar Mangalam, you wanted to say something, yeah.
I agree that, it happened because the Prime Minister was murdered, was assassinated by 2 of her own guards, and that was a fallout perhaps of Operation Blue Star. But the fact is that the Prime Minister who came in after that made a statement saying, you know what the statement is, and since he's, that the earth will shake when a banyan tree falls. So the point is not that it got communalized, whether we wanted it to or not, or meant it that way or not. Perhaps the gentleman I'm speaking of reacted emotionally because the earlier Prime Minister was his mother. But that, this country is not going to go into the minutiae of what happened and why happened, who said that. When somebody in that position says something like that, it gets communalized. Now, leaving that aside, I'd like to say that this accusation that's always made about the so-called majority community, the majority community is a minority in several states, whether it's Jammu and Kashmir, more Kashmir than Jammu, and many other states. People have started, we are more or less, I think we are the minority community in Kerala, Mr. Vadakan state. In many other states, and in many districts, especially in the country, we are the minority community. But the entire, I mean, the word majoritarian that you used, I take askance to it because, you know, I don't think it's fair. Now, whatever may have happened to politics in the last 25 years, or is being claimed is the reason for the BJP coming to power. I don't think the BJP came to power at the center in 2014 because of religious reasons, but because development was promised, and what Mr. Vadakan is trying to say is the wrong model of development from Gujarat is what everybody was looking at, right? Now, we have been in power for barely 3.5 years. It's nothing. It's a timeline of a country. And in 3.5 years, the sort of expectations that are being put on the shoulders of the so-called majority community or the BJP is, I think, quite unfair. We have actually taken some steps which not everything is economic. I said this in your last show.
Yes.
Look at triple talaq. Nobody bothered to look at Muslim women.
Come 2019.
Beyond that.
Come 2019, looking beyond now, come 2019, are you going to fight the election on the development agenda, or is it going to be a mix of both development and Ram Mandir?
No, but development also has to be inclusive, and development is inclusive. This is what everybody is forgetting. If you build a road, or you build a well, or you build a school, you don't say it's only for Hindus or Muslims or Jains or Christians or whatever, right? It's a school for a community. And religious practices do often divide, but that's not true only of one religion. It's pan all religions. So this whole argument that's always being put forth that it's only the BJP and only the so-called majority community that's at fault is totally not fictitious, but it's without any basis.
Okay.
It's a political argument.
Okay, it's a political argument is what you're suggesting. Mr. Basu has a smile on his face, clearly not agreeing with what you have to say. But Mr. Basu, you can respond to that. And also, do you believe what happened in 1992, 25 years ago, does it still have significance in today's day and age in 2017?
First of all, the question of inclusive development. Now, what is inclusive development? You see, people are losing jobs, but not in a uniform pattern. Certain vulnerable sections, like the peasantry or those who have been working in the unorganized or the informal sector, even the official data is capturing that unevenness in the people who are bearing the burden of certain so-called developmental initiatives. So let us leave it at that. The second point is, you see, Ms. Kumar Mangalam also inadvertently or subconsciously, she is saying, we are in the minority. Who is this we? How do we define the we? No. I mean, again, I am a Bengali.
I'll let you respond.
I am a Bengali. I have been born in a Hindu family. I live and I am a citizen of India. Bengali is my mother tongue. So similarly, she would also be having similar attributes and similar aspects of identity. Therefore, I think when we discuss political programs and policies, I mean, we have to, for being inclusive, necessarily address ourselves as citizens of India. Now, there we would definitely look in the social hierarchy. Historically, the Dalits are backward. They have suffered social discrimination. Therefore, we have to address that question. There are tribal communities who are more backward, who has been denied of certain developmental opportunities that have been there in the mainstream and so on and so forth. Therefore, I think the question now is how far we can go together. Professor was telling, now I will just point out that we had to bear the brunt from both the sides. For example, before the Ayodhya thing, when the question of Shah Banu judgment came, we said that what the government is doing, led by Rajiv Gandhi, is absolutely wrong. and she has a legitimate right, and that must be granted. So they go and appease the minority communal forces and bring in this partial bill.
I'm running out of time, Mr. Basu.
Muslim law. And therefore, then it is followed by this Ayodhya thing. And then BJP was agreeing with us that in matters of faith, I mean, this is a constitutional issue. But when it came to Ayodhya, we said that go by court. They said, no. How can the court educate on matters of faith? Therefore, you see, there is always trouble if you mix religion and public affairs and governance.
Okay. Quick closing comments from all my guests. I've got 2 minutes left on the program, beginning with you, Professor. You know, can we keep religion out of politics?
I think, as I said, that religion as a value, it is difficult to keep it out. But religion as a faith, of course, is personal. But at the same time, I would say that if it is a question of debate on some kind of development versus religion, then of course it cannot be a kind of a right perspective. We will have to have both religion plus development or development plus religion. Because religion has to be there as a part of our moral values and our moral behavior.
Mr. Vadakkan, closing comments.
I think the ground reality is that religion is in existence. The point is religion is about moral values, and it's a private affair, and I accept that. But at the same time, politicians must keep out of religion and stop politicizing it. And growth, development are issues, of fundamental questions. As economic development, employment, these are issues today.
Will we see the day, Ms. Kumaramangalam, when we see politicians not politicizing issues?
We are politicians. We are going to politicize issues. That's I think across the board everybody would agree. But that's not the point. The point is that what you're trying to ask me is that in the next elections, in 2019, development will be the plank. Of course, religion will also influence people. As the professor said, and he said it very honestly and frankly, that it's not as if religion is going to disappear off the social scene. But 2019 will be more about the developmental plank. But here I just want to make a point. In 2019, the women's vote is going to count much more, perhaps, than in earlier elections. And the sooner all political parties take notice of this, and that is not going to be according to merely religion. In the past, it was thought that women voted only because of religious reasons and what they were told to do. But I think we have now started having a mind of our own, so we need to pay attention.
Running out of time, Mr. Basu, close the show for us.
No, I will, because according to Professor Sharma's marker, I do not have the morality because I am a non-believer. But I think, I mean, therefore, the moral question linking that to religious beliefs is also a distortion, and I think we are equal citizens, and therefore the concern should be how can we have across the board discussion and agree on an inclusive pattern of development where all sections benefit.
Okay, that's it on this edition of The Big Picture. Thank you to all my guests for joining me, and see you again next time.